Hi, I'm Allegra, and it's Thursday, and I'm so happy to be with you. My company is called Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and I'm all about helping you prioritize yourself and your goals, and doing that by harnessing the power of planning. Because let me tell you, I have found that in my life, planning makes everything easier, planning makes everything mm, possible, almost everything. I guess there's some things that are out of our control, but vast majority of the time, we do have some say over how we spend our time, and planning is what makes it possible for me to take care of myself, have a business, show up as my best self for my family and the other people that I provide care for. It's interesting because I'm going to be speaking next week at an event, and it's all women, but not all the women are moms. The thing is, though, is that at some point in your life, you're probably going to have to take care of somebody, whether it's a parent or a sibling or a grandparent or a spouse. The reality is that a lot of caregiving does fall on the shoulders of women. Men as well. Men are also caregivers. However, more often it falls on to women. And I know from my experience that my basically all the way up until I would say mid 30s, the only person I really had to think about was myself and my spouse, and if we had a fur baby at that point, then a fur baby. But once I became a mom, and once I got a little bit older and now had to provide support to my mother, my mother-in-law, my grandmother, suddenly I had a lot of people who had claims on my time. And so if you currently are not a caregiver, it's still great to harness the power of planning because that is it's gonna make it possible for you to still prioritize yourself even while you have people with other claims on your time. So, I have co-authored 4 books with Natasha Corrigan, who is a frequent guest on the podcast, and if you are looking for a quick win, then this is the book that you want. 3, 2, 1, done. 3 simple strategies to get your to-do list done, and this is all about giving you a framework so that you know how to look at a list of things that you have to get done and you know where to start. If you've ever written down a list and you have like 20, 30 things on that list and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Well, guess what? There is a strategic way to think about it, and we give it to you in this book. And today's topics on this podcast, we are talking about how to be a consumer in this day and age. So, how to be, if you want to call it a thoughtful consumer or conscious consumer. I'm also going to talk about the economic blackout that a lot of people are talking about for tomorrow, February 28th. And I'm also going to talk about something my family and I are doing for the second year in a row, which we call the Grand Edit. And then in part 2 of the podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about doing some summer planning. If you are thinking about going on vacation or doing any sort of summer camp with your kid or that sort of thing, now is the time to do that planning. So, first though, I'm going to pull a saying from my little deck of cards here that I love. And for those of you watching right now, feel free to chat whatever platform you're watching on. I will see those. And even if you're listening to the recording, this will be the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. It will be episode 94. Oh my gosh, I'm so close to 100. So you can always find it on whatever podcast platform you like. So, okay, let's pull this card. Ooh, Carlos Castaneda. I did not know he was in this deck. It's amazing how many sayings are in this deck. Okay. We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same. Carlos Castaneda. We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same. Carlos Castaneda. So I am definitely in the group of people who believes that sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. That's right. I did not use the lose word because, yes, factually, you might have lost, but you probably learned something. And I have absolutely been in this position. I think it's impossible to get to a certain age and not have lost something that you either one, really wanted, or two, you thought you had really earned. And I've lost both those things. I've lost things that I really wanted, and I've lost things that I thought I had earned. And let me tell you, those were some learning experiences. The one where I really thought I had earned it was I was competing in this speech competition, and I gave the best speech of my life, and, like, I knew in my bones I had won. And when it was announced that I was the 2nd place person, there were many people who said that I should contest the results. And, I mean, it was interesting to have people who I didn't even know come up to me and say, "You were robbed." Like, it was it was so personal, and I think part of why it was so personal was because I had done the best job. And I remember feeling very just like my whole idea of the universe and the laws of the universe and, cause and effect were like, "What happened?" And I happened to go on a camping trip right after this event happened, and I was sitting in a hammock thinking, and I realized that for the first time ever, I knew what that saying that I feel like every teacher said to me when I was a kid, that doing your best is its own reward, right? We parents say it, teachers say it, doing your best is its own reward. And it's something that we all say, yeah, 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 doing your best is its own reward. However, what I realized was that sometimes when you're in a competition and you do your best and you think the reward is the prize, you forget this saying that doing your best is its own reward. And I really felt it that day sitting in that hammock because that competition got my public speaking to a level that I could not have done on my own, really. The crucible of competition just really inspired me to do my best and to reach my deepest with my writing and with my speaking. And that was its own reward. That all of that learning that I accumulated during that competition, I have applied going forward. And so when Carlos Castaneda says that sometimes we make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong, the amount of work is the same. I would agree with him. I could have been absolutely miserable. People were telling me I should file petitions, yada, yada, yada. Or I could realize that in 1 year, no one would remember who won that competition. In 10 years, it really wouldn't matter. But the learning that I acquired during that has stayed with me. And so I disagree with this comment a little bit because when he says the amount of work is the same, yeah, I guess like the volume of work is the same, but the mind shift that is required to turn something from being miserable into something that makes you stronger, it takes some practice, it takes some effort, but yeah, it's not a huge amount of work. It's a mind shift. So, thank you, Carlos Castaneda. I love this saying. Great, great thing to remember. So, let's talk about today's topics, which are about being a conscious consumer and also the grand edit. And tomorrow, many people are calling for an economic blackout, especially an economic blackout of big retailers who are perhaps not running their business in a way that is aligned with your values. And to that, I would say that, look, I think when you have the choice to support a company that is aligned with your values versus not aligned with your values, you should always choose the one that's aligned with your values. There's an expression called vote with your dollars. That is what you are doing. I personally have changed my shopping habits a lot in the last year. I canceled some things that I was a member of. Perhaps you're a member of them as well. And I have been shifting my shopping. Now, what does that look like? Yes, it requires more effort on my part. Let's just be frank. I used to have a membership with an online retailer where you could find everything from A to Z, let's just say it that way, and but the thing is I used to not be a member of that online retailer, and you know what? I was satisfied. I got everything I wanted more or less. It's funny because literally the one thing that drove me to this retailer is a salsa that I tasted for the first time in Costa Rica. If you know it, you know what it is. It is Lozano. That's right. And for years I bought Lozano on a little website called like Salsas, etc. or something. And then they decided to sell through this larger retailer, and then they just kind of went away. So, I have been able to reduce my spending with that retailer by about 90 let's say 97%. Like, literally, I'm getting 1 box a month from them, and it's, like, 4 things that I can't find anywhere else, and that's it. Huge decrease in spending, huge decrease. Now, so what am I doing instead? So I've just been going direct to the suppliers. And in some ways, it's been fantastic because I found out about things that were not being offered on the big retailer. Maybe they couldn't make enough money on these other items selling them on the big retailer, but they can make enough money selling it direct. It's been great. Like, for instance, a company that I love is called Open Farm. And I'll include all the links in the show notes and everything so you can see that. Open Farm, my dog literally dances when it's time for dinner. She is so excited for their food. And I had only been able to find a small percentage of their offerings on the big retailer. But on their website, they have all these options. And guess what? They also have auto ship. So you don't necessarily have to do as much work as you think for those things that you buy regularly, like dog food and toilet paper and toiletries and that sort of thing. But it will require you to branch out and maybe get some memberships. But I've been glad I have, because I've been rewarded with Open Farm finding out about these options that I didn't even know exist, which is so awesome. It seems like every retailer now, the small retailers who only carry their own stuff, it seems like all of them are doing auto ship now. So if you just want to set it and forget it, it's easy to do. I have so many auto ships now. It's incredible. Now, for things that I need to manage a little more actively, such as supplements, like I like specific brands and specific types of supplements, and those require going to a little bit more of a specialty retailer. I will say that there are two other retailers that have really helped me to move away from the other one, and that are Vitacost and Thrive Market. Now, Vitacost is much more like a supplement shop. They do have some food items, like you can get chia seeds and hemp seeds, and by the way, you can get a lot of these things at Costco, but I just don't really shop at Costco anymore. It just doesn't fit in with my daily routine. And so absolutely, if you love Costco, go to Costco. They are a great company. But I have been shopping from Vitacost and Thrive Market. Vitacost, I get more of my dry goods and my supplements. I also get things like toilet paper, paper towels, soap, and shampoo. I love shopping at Sprouts, but there's not a Sprouts nearby me. So that is why I often end up getting a lot of things through Vitacost. And then Thrive Market, you can get all the things that you can get at Vitacost, more or less, maybe not some of the more specialty supplements, but at Thrive Market, you can also get more food stuff. They actually deliver produce and things like that. So if you're looking for like, for instance, something that you just can't really find in the market are organic purple sweet potatoes, which one are so delicious and two are so good for you that it is fantastic to have that option. So shop with your values. Absolutely, stop shopping with companies who do not have the same values that you have. And if you're so inclined, don't shop tomorrow. There I have made some permanent changes to my shopping habits in the last year that are aligned with this economic blackout where I'm spending money with retailers that support values that I support. However, if for some reason you need to shop with some of these organizations because they are the only ones in your area or the only ones who carry something that you need, at least, at the very least, do not shop there tomorrow to prove a point that you can vote with your dollars when you choose to, and they should be aware of that. So, February 28th, economic blackout. One other thing I want to mention when talking about being a conscious consumer is there is this triangle that you've seen: reduce, reuse, recycle, right? The triangle of arrows. And what people often don't understand is that those three words are in hierarchical order: reduce, reuse, recycle. And they are in that order because that is the way to have the biggest impact on the environment is first reducing, then reusing, and then recycle. Recycling is not the end all be all answer, especially as a lot of recycling programs in cities have gone backwards. S- Not necessarily for a bad reason, because as it turned out, a lot of our recyclables were being shipped to other countries. And guess what? They don't want them anymore, which who can blame them? We all were feeling really good because we thought we were recycling everything, but really we were just kind of pushing the problem onto other countries. And so now in Los Angeles, we used to be able to quote unquote recycle everything, and now it's much more limited. And I don't know about you, but definitely the more things that I have to throw into a trash can, the more it changes my shopping habits. So, reduce, that means don't bring things into your house if you don't have to. And that can include things like plastic wrap. Sometimes when you go grocery shopping, there are like bags of apples in prepackaged in a bag for you. Can you choose to buy the single apples instead? And can you choose to put those directly into your reusable shopping bag rather than into a plastic bag first? Right? That's reducing. Reduce your use of plastic bags. Another way you can do this is by going to the farmer's market and just bringing your own reusable bags. There are a number of farmers markets in big cities. Search them out. Not only will you save a ton of money, but you will reduce your plastic waste. Also, there's less concern with contracting any of these like avian flu has really pretty exclusively been confined to factory farm situations. So when you're buying eggs from a small farmer, that would be less of an issue to think about. So, it's just better all the way around. So, reduce as much as possible, reuse, if you bring something into your home, how can you reuse it? For instance, you might have noticed that I have a different background than I usually have. Well, I've decided to switch my background because the other background has become worn in such a way that it doesn't look good on camera anymore. However, I'm keeping it around because it will be great as a drop cloth for future painting that I do because I'm always doing things around my house. So it could also be a tablecloth, like for a picnic tablecloth, that sort of thing. So reuse things. And then finally, recycle, which we all kind of understand. And if you haven't heard me mention it before, one of the best ways to reuse things, if you can't personally reuse them, is to give them another life. If you haven't checked out your local Buy Nothing group, I highly recommend it. I started my Buy Nothing group about 5 years ago now, and it has given me so many blessings beyond the things. And if you don't know what the Buy Nothing group is, it's basically a gifting community that is hyper local to an area. And join your local Buy Nothing group. You'll be amazed at the things that you will receive. You'll be amazed at the things that you can give away. Like one time I was looking for a plug cover for a 3-prong electrical plug. They come for free a lot of times on new appliances. I needed one of those, and I knew I could find it on the Buy Nothing group. Sure enough, I quickly got one. And then also too, as you become friends with these people, you're going to gain so much more. Out of the Buy Nothing group, we have created a hiking group, a mahjong group. We do events. It is such a wonderful way to build community. So, and it's a wonderful way to gift items that still have life in them, but maybe you don't personally need them anymore. Like especially like baby clothes, babies. There's always tons of stuff on there because kids outgrow things really fast. So my final thought about being a consumer in this day and age is when you reach the age that I am, which is 50, it's amazing how many things you've acquired, even if you're not a huge consumer. I just happen to be sentimental. So, like for instance, I'm looking at something right now. I can't reach it or I'd grab it, but it's a little bottle with glitter in it, and it says something like handmade with love. And I got that at a birthday party for someone I really love, and it makes me happy looking at it because it reminds me of this person. However, by the time you're 50, you've gone to quite a few birthday parties and that sort of thing, and you can definitely accumulate a lot of little meaningful things just because you've lived a long time. So my family last year, we really committed to doing something that we call the grand edit. And I should have pulled down the mission statement so that I could read it to you, but it says something along the lines of to go through our home and release things that we're no longer using and rehome them or regift them to other people so that everything has a place and everything we see gets used. And so I wrote this out, and we have almost nothing on our refrigerator. We just have this one kind of philosophical thing and then the grand edit. And everyone in my household has signed the grand edit. And we started it last year. And I'd like to think that we would finish it in 1 year. But hey, regular life is happening. Also, it was my 50th birthday. It's been my 50th birthday year. So I've been doing a lot of celebrating. So it hasn't gone as fast as I would have liked. And this year we are in year 2 of the grand edit. We did a new little poster. My daughter rewrote everything I wrote and decorated it and made it all pretty, and we all signed it. And so we are currently going through the grand edit, year 2. And it's wonderful to have that daily reminder on the fridge. And really, just about every day, I am going through something. And I can tell you now, we've been in the grand edit now for 14 months. I'm starting to feel a difference, and it's so exciting. Like, I'm really starting to see clear spaces. And to me, it just feels different. Like, it feels like the energy moves through our house differently, having this little bit of extra space because there aren't things like, for instance, I had built a microphone thing out of a wine crate, kind of a place to use my microphone where it would be surrounded on all sides and soundproofed. And it worked well, but this works almost as well. I would say that sound crate thing worked 10% better. Well, guess what? That sound crate thing looked horrible on camera, so I was never using it. So even though it was 10% better sound-wise, because the majority of the time I'm using this mic is on camera, it didn't work for me. So it had been sitting under my desk for, I don't know, 2 years, and it wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. It was probably about, you know, 2 feet, 18 inches to 2 feet long and 12 inches wide. So it was big enough that it was taking up space, and it was super dusty. And so I was like, "This is great. This was useful, but I am not using it and letting it go." I don't think I would have let it go if I hadn't been in the philosophical mind of, "Okay, I'm doing a grand edit, and I need to let go of things like this." So let me tell you, it takes a little while because I'm doing it slow. I'm not doing the whole Marie Kondo pull out everything in the closet every day. That just doesn't work well for me. I resist doing that kind of thing. If that works for you, awesome. For me, it's just more helpful to look at things with new eyes and say, "Oh, right, there's that thing down there that I haven't used in a while. Hmm, grand edit. It's been a couple years. Yes, I'm gonna let it go." That is working well for me, and 14 months in, it's made a real difference that I can see. So that's really exciting. Okay. So let's talk about summertime. Topic number 2. Summertime is coming for those of you who have older kiddos. It might be starting in May. Other people might be starting in June. Now is when you should be making plans for early summer. If you're not making plans until August or September, then you have time to go. But my kiddo, her summer is basically mid-June to mid-August. It's short. It's only 2 months. So 1, we don't have a lot of time, and 2, it is quickly approaching. So I personally had started bringing up summer to my family uh, basically around New Year, saying, "Hey, so what do we wanna do?" So maybe you already have some ideas, and if so, great. Start looking at what you need in order to make those plans. If you have to buy plane tickets, either buy them now or set an alert. There are some really I have had some success with using Google Flight to kind of predict when the least expensive flights will happen. However, I will say this about Google Flight. It is not always intuitive. For instance, I have found that if you change things like how many stops and what time you want to depart at, it will show you flights that it hadn't shown you when you didn't have those on, which I think is strange because if you have no criteria on, I feel like you should see the most flight options. So definitely play around with Google Flights because I've been surprised at better fares that have popped up when I have moved some of the buttons around. If your kid is interested or you're interested in your child going to camp, this is definitely a great time, especially because at least where I live, some of the smaller camps, they fill up really fast. So for instance, my daughter was interested in a really, really specialized camp that only had like 30 spots. So I basically, as soon as the new year rolled around, I was on their website. They had so few spots that they never sent out emails when registration opened because they felt like it would be unfair and it would just overload the system. So literally, you just had to check every single day or week or whatever you wanted to do. You had to check all the time to see if registration was open so you could register. But that's how I got her in. She went every single year and we always got one of the spots because I had it in my calendar, start looking at the website to register her for this camp. So if it's a really specialty camp like that, then you have to probably start looking now and registering now. If it is a city camp, in my experience, city camps don't seem to fill up. There seem to be openings pretty much up until like 1 or 2 weeks before. This probably varies a lot depending on where you are, but that's been my experience in the Los Angeles area. So, let's say at the last minute your kid wants to go to camp, check out the city camps. There are so many options, at least in the Los Angeles area. I can't speak for every city as to what your camps are. I'd love to hear from you about your experience with camps and how, what the time frame is for signing up for those. And then at least in Los Angeles and I know other major cities have lots of private options that are all over the place in terms of number of kids they take. But start looking now so that you can either budget for it or plan for it. My child did like to attend some really specialized camps, and we had to basically work everything around those specialized camps because they were so short. One camp, it was literally only 2 weeks long. That was how long it was. But it was 1 week in July and then 1 week in August. So we had to work everything around those vacations, etc. And if when my child, like for instance, she had a lot of things going on in the summer. When she had a lot of things planned, we would make our vacations much smaller and more local. So for instance, whenever the years that she was going to this camp, she can't go to the camp anymore, she's too old. But the year she was going to this camp, we would never fly anywhere on vacation. We would just do camping locally because it was just the only way to fit in time away while she had these camps. We've only started to do flying away vacations because she can no longer do this camp and we don't have to we don't have to plan everything around it. But it was fantastic. I wouldn't change it. She loved the camp so much. It was definitely worth it. And we love camping. So camping is such a great way to vacation easily and relatively inexpensively. Obviously, there's some costs required if you are camping for the first time, but hey, maybe you can borrow things from people. The other thing too is if you've never been camping, you might not realize that there are lots of options to do what's called car camping. I put car camping in quotes for those of you listening to the podcast because car camping basically means you pull up in your car, you open the trunk, and you're at your campsite. You could even sleep in your car if you wanted to. I do know people who have, SUVs who they pull out a pop-up tent, maybe, just to give them some shade during the day. They pull out their chairs and then they set up their bedrolls, their sleeping bags inside the car. So it's really easy to car camp and it's so inexpensive. I mean, campsites can be as little as, $35 a night. And for me, there is nothing more relaxing than camping. And in fact, we actually have on our website a checklist if you've never gone camping before, a checklist that will help you think about all the things that you might not have thought of because you've never been camping before. So I will just put that up here on, here we go. It is subscribepage.com/camping. So if you go here, you can sign up for our 10 tips, top 10 tips for planning a camping trip. And we also have printables that Natasha and I have both created that are our own packing lists for camping, and they're slightly different. So you can get both of them. But there's a lot of science in terms of the health benefits of camping. One has been shown that it improves mood. Nature provides a break from digital stimulation or overstimulation. Two, improve sleep. Exposure to sunlight and removal of artificial light resets your body clock, which improves sleep. And three, you breathe easier. Air pollution triggers asthma, and indoor air pollution can even be worse than quote unquote city air. So, getting outside into fresh air is really great for everyone, but especially for young kiddos. So, if you haven't gone camping before, absolutely go camping and check out our freebie at subscribepage.com/camping, where we give you our top 10 tips for camping, as well as those packing lists that you can just print up and follow to help you with packing. So the nice thing about camping is that there's so many camping spaces available that maybe the most popular ones you won't be able to get into at the last minute. In the California area, campsites open 6 months in advance of the day that you want them, and for some of the most popular campsites, you have to be right on it when they open 6 months before. However, there are less popular campsites that always have space available. So it's a great way to plan an inexpensive and a last minute vacation for your family. If sometimes with our family, if plans get canceled on a weekend, we'll just say, hey, let's go camping. It is so fantastic. It really resets the body clock. I can tell you that 2 nights of camping feels like 10 days of vacation anywhere else because it's so relaxing for me. So, do a little bit of summer planning right now while you're thinking about it fresh. And remember, there's always other ways to figure out what you want. If you want some time off, there's ways to get it inexpensively and easily. You just might have to consider doing something you've never done before, like camping, which I highly recommend. Thank you so much. And remember, planning makes everything easier. And if you're ready to take your planning to the next level, we have our life design course called Harness the Power of Planning. And it is now available on demand at tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand. That's tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand, or simply hit that QR code if you are watching this live. Next week, I have a really, really special episode. If you all remember, about a month ago, I was on vacation with some of my closest girlfriends, and they're going to be rejoining me next week to talk about what it's like 1 month later. They say that they say that they always do things a little bit differently once they come back from being on vacation with me, and so I thought it'd be fun to hear, okay, well, what does that mean exactly? So I'm going to have my girlfriends on next week. That's the first week of March, and again, you can always listen to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast and catch the recording of that, and happy end of February. Remember, tomorrow, February 28th, Economic Black